Welcome, everybody. We have a very special guest today for a number of reasons. I've known Kieran for a long time. He was early on the gaming trend. He grew up in a very competitive household, having a brother that has also been building in the space for quite a bit of time. I first met Kieran when he was just about to start his project called Illuvium. And so in this conversation, we're going to touch about a number of things. Obviously, the metaverse, gaming, play to earn, and just make it a very immersive discussion on that, plus Illuvium. So I'm really excited to have Kieran on. He's a good friend. I'm very involved in Illuvium, as everyone knows. And so here we are. Kieran, welcome to the show. We've been trying to get you on for quite a bit of time. I know you're super busy. So thank you for making time.
I know. I feel like I've been on every other podcast but yours, which definitely needed to be fixed immediately. But yeah, thanks for having me. I can't wait to dive deep onto everything that's happened in the last 18 months, which has been a lot.
Most people don't appreciate how accessible like founders in crypto are. You know, in traditional companies, you're lucky if you get a question in for the founders. And most people come into the space and are critical and say, no, this is like a whale game and it's only run by institutions. I'm like, well, what are you talking about? You can join Illuvium's Discord and Kieran is there most of the time and you have access to him. And to me, that's pretty wild. You know, that just tells you how exciting, you know, it is to get access to folks like you. Because I know you're really close with the community.
Yeah, and it's one thing that I say to every single founder or anyone who's involved in a project that asks me, you know, what was that one thing that you did in the beginning that really helped foster a positive community? And it was that myself, Grant, and Aaron were all in Discord, like all the time, and we kept that going. You know, the other day I ended up streaming an hour and a half, 2 hours of the game live, and to me, to us, you know, Grant jumped in after like 30 minutes. He was like, whoa, Kieran's streaming, I'm going to jump in. And then you've got two founders that are in there on this stream, like literally a raw thing, nothing planned, anything like that. So yeah, I think that was one big thing that we've done and kept doing throughout the building phase is staying very in touch with the community.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, some people looking outside in might say, you know, Illuvium, which we'll get to in a second, what you're building has not launched, but you've created this very engaged audience in Discord, and you managed to build a lot of excitement for your game. And you're close to launching, but it's been, you know, over a year now. Games take a long time to build and develop, but it's pretty impressive that like a protocol like yours has built this community of people that are really excited and they feel that they're part of the development of the game. Would you agree with that? Like, do you think that's like a differentiating factor relative to traditional company building?
Yeah, 100%. And I think we even took it another step further in terms of traditional Web3 games that we're building, in the sense that prior to our token even existing, we airdropped a pre-ILV token to anyone who had joined the Discord and anyone from the SNX Discord that had jumped over. And so we had like 10,000 people that were holding these tokens, and the only use for those tokens was to vote on different things that we could improve on or change, like a value or configurable, whatever it might be. But from the get-go, and this was definitely beaten into me by Kane, was hand over the power to the community and the network effects of that, of giving, you know, the revenue distributions and like the governance decisions and all of this stuff. A community building it is theoretically better than, you know, a couple of minds sitting in a room trying to make what everyone else wants without listening to them, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I think most people come to space maybe from 2017 and just jump back in now and say, why do you need a token? Like, there's not even a game that you can play today. And the role of a token just feels like, oh, this is just speculation. Like, token go up, great, people are happy. Token go down, you're the villain. But like, what you're saying is people feel like they're part of there's a sense of ownership that you don't have in traditional games, and people are much more vested. Versus, and there's good and bad to that, I guess. How do you manage like these people's expectations? Because people now have a token, they want to be heard, they want to be listened to. And before we get to Illuvium and all the components, I want to just get your perspective on this, because this keeps being like a hot topic in crypto. Should you have a token? What's the role of a token? If it's just governance, like, does it even matter? And in your case, like, you're obviously trying to build a game. Like, how do you manage like what people can actually vote on versus what you guys are trying to just go and build the best game out there?
So we absolutely needed a token because of our tokenomics model. The revenue distribution that is inbuilt into the system means that we need people to be staked in the protocol. Whatever portion you are staked is the portion that you're going to get out from the in-game fees. And so for us, there's a very real utility. It's almost like a passive income token where you can sit it there and know, I'm very similar to buying shares, except instead of getting a dividend quarterly, you're getting a dividend weekly. Obviously, on top of that as well, you've got all of the governance decisions. And again, with that, you need to know, you need to give equal rights to people based on their token holdings. And so again, or I should say, based on how much they own of the network. And in my opinion, the best way to do that is to tokenize it. But there are plenty of examples where you look at it and you think that definitely doesn't need a token.
It would be almost as if for folks that are not as familiar with kind of what we're talking about here, revenue, staking, distributions, and all this stuff. Imagine if you had Fortnite and all of a sudden you as a user now had the ability to participate in, Fortnite is now a 30, 40, I forget the latest round, I think $32 billion behemoth. It's getting a lot of traction. It's as if users now had the ability to earn based on their contributions, right? Some of those users are creating content, are there, and they're pulling in their friends, but they're not really benefiting from any of that, other than, of course, the social interactions, I guess. But it's as if they could have a token, and that would allow them to be more engaged and feel like they're actually participating in the company building and equity value of Fortnite. Is that kind of a good framework to think about it, or do you see something else?
Yeah, there's kind of two schools of thought. There's the people that don't like gaming and it doesn't interest them. However, they know that gaming is a huge vertical, especially in crypto right now. And this is their way to tap in and say, I can see that it's a great game. Just because I don't like it doesn't mean it's a bad investment. Now, those people are able to go and buy ILV and stake it on our staking platform. And as soon as the game starts, or not even the game, land revenue, Luvitar's revenue, which is our PFP project, any of the revenues that we are generating go back to the stakeholders. So you don't even need to play the game or like the game or whatever, and you can have that stake. Now, where it gets really, really interesting, what you were talking about, is the gamer, the guy who actually does want to play the game, but he also wants to shape the way that the game works and how the expansions are going to form and all of that kind of stuff. And that's when holding the token gives you those rights and the ability to join in on that discussion. And that's what makes the community so much different in a Web3 game versus a Web2 game, is because you have this sense of, it's not you versus the developers, if that makes sense, which is kind of what it's like in a lot of games out there in Web 2. Web 3, it's almost like, well, we all made this decision to change the balance of the game like this, or add in this mode or this feature or whatever. And so it's less of, it's more of, as a collective, we made a bad decision, let's fix that, which you can do much faster than in a situation where you're in this echo chamber and you feel like you're delivering exactly what your customers want, when in actual fact, you started off okay, but you slowly started losing customers over time and you weren't listening to them. And then, all things start falling apart. That's kind of the way that I see it for the two parties.
Before we jump into Illuvium, I want to get your perspective and kind of lay out the state of affairs of like Web3 gaming, right? Because when you and I, just a little bit of backstory, you and I met, this was November 2020. We were coming off of DeFi summer. Everyone was kind of disillusioned with this is just like your Ponzonomics and all, just yield farming games. And I think most people just kind of missed the boat on Axie and what it was doing. I passed in the seed round, much to my detriment. And then I met you and I said, wait a minute. If Axie, this game that is just a very simple battle, not very immersive, not a game that I would want to play, is getting all this traction, then I want to see a game apply that same kind of model, what it was started to be called play to earn, in a more immersive game. And I love playing Zelda and Donkey Kong and Nintendo type games. And that's when I met you. And that's why I decided to jump on and back you early on. What were you seeing back then that made you jump? Because it wasn't that obvious. I mean, it was, in retrospect it is, but like back then it just felt like it was something, you were hitting a nerve, but it wasn't as like in your face as it is today. But what made you decide to finally come out of the woodwork and build Illuvium?
It was Axie. It literally was Axie. I was invested in probably 50, 60 different random protocols where I was mostly doing yield farming and whatever. And I think I read that Axie was potentially going to do their own staking program. And so I ended up looking up what is Axie, like how does a game do staking or whatever. And I started looking into it, and I really liked the fact that you could own your assets. It was Axie that got me to look into NFTs and what that could actually do. And I went back, like I went down the rabbit hole. I started looking into all of the different things, all of the different token types and whatever. I was looking at this going, they've got so many users, but it's a very basic game. Like what is going on here? And then I worked out that they allow you to own the assets. And what that meant was the people that were grinding with their time, and in previous decades, they wouldn't have been able to do anything with that. That's a sunk cost, that time. In this case, they were literally going onto this open market and they were selling these things that they were creating. And it made me think back to World of Warcraft, Guild Wars, like all of these games that I had sunk so many hours into, like stupid amounts into. And I thought, imagine if you could go and sell those things. Like it would change gaming forever. Like it really was so obvious to me when that penny dropped. It just was like, okay, there's nothing else that I want to do apart from make a game. But instead of making it, an indie type game that isn't that fun and just has really good financial mechanics underneath it, let's build an incredibly immersive, awesome game that's addictive. It has replayability, all of the things that you love in mainstream. And then let's also from the start integrate the best aspects of Web3. And that's, why you see the staking, the governance, it's completely decentralized. And I think that's, why we're in the position that we are now, and why people are so hyped for it to come out, because we've tried to make it the first full package of DeFi plus gaming.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. It feels like not only having the certainty that people are not going to change the rules on you, but also having a digital footprint of everything that you've done, and actually even just flexing to people, hey, listen, I was an early player of Call of Duty, and sometimes I was, just being able to prove to people that has in and of itself has value, right? So, anyways, no, it would be fun to go back. What does it mean? What does it mean to you? What does it mean to build a good game?
It's got from the get go. It needs to be entertaining. Now, entertainment can come in many different ways, but it's got to be fun, right? It has to be fun, engaging, immersive, and probably probably the most important thing out of all of those things is making sure that it has replayability. If your game is only fun, like you might build a fun game, right? And I'll touch on this later, but survival mode for me right now, it's a good game and it's got amazing graphics and all that kind of stuff. But because it doesn't have the PvP component, it loses the replayability for me. And so you have to have that total package. That's what makes a good game.
And what makes Illuvium, like the grand vision of Illuvium, what makes it a fun game relative to Axie or perhaps others?
The skill, the competition, and the skill. You've got to better your opponent, and it's very much an esports game. It's all about learning and getting better and better and better. And as you get the best part about that is in Illuvium, as you get better, you should theoretically be earning more as you go, which isn't necessarily the case. You get to level 50 in World of Warcraft, cool, you've got badges and whatever, but there's you can't do anything. The difference is that you can do things in Illuvium with those assets.
A lot of traditional games, the gaming industry as a whole, like their games are probably the businesses that scale the fastest, from like $0 to $100 million in revenue. You see these games just like take off like crazy, but then die off really quickly. And it's a question of engagement, and people just jump to the next game, like Candy Crush, for instance. Like you saw a massive explosion, then all of a sudden it kind of died off, and people move on to the next thing. It feels like there's a lot of churn, there's a lot of hype, there's a lot of churn. How do you fix that in a game like Illuvium?
So there's some games which aren't, they're supposed to be that. There's the Flappy Bird type game where it's super addictive in terms of like you're probably going to sit there and go, you know what, I'm not going to go to work today. But is that going to last 7 days in a row where you're missing work to play Flappy Bird all the time? Probably not, right? But it's not designed to do that. It's designed to be a casual mobile game where every now and again you go, whoop, I'm going to go and play. Now, Illuvium is not meant to be that. Firstly, we're building a universe, a suite of games that are all interoperable, and all of them are highly immersive, all skill-based, where you need to constantly be evolving, getting better, learning the meta of the game, and just having another thing to do as well, building on that, having expansion 1, expansion 2, a new game where you can take those assets that you had in, Illuvium, and then you might go, you know what, I want to play it in this second game. That's how you keep people in your ecosystem. And I feel like we almost have an unfair advantage in Web3 because we can make all of those assets interoperable if it's the same publisher right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Tell us a little bit more about what went into the development of getting to this point. We met in November. You just had a white paper. And then I look at this in a year's time. I'm like, okay.
The biggest thing that we did that I think we do differently to most crypto projects is we really, really utilized the capital formation that we were able to perform early on. We raised like all the way throughout. I mean, the pre-seed, we used that money to show the seed people, hey, we are a legit project that is building a AAA here. Then we took that 5 million, and you were a part of both of those raises, and we took that 5 million and said, okay, now we've got $5 million to go and show the public that we're actually going to build a AAA game. Now, you can say whatever you want on podcasts and, you know, in interviews and whatever, but if you don't have the team to back it up, if you're not showing your progress as you go along, then you're just saying words. And so for us, it was about actualizing what we were saying we were going to do, and that meant rapid team expansion. If you go to a Web2 gaming studio and you say, hey, do you think a studio can build a AAA game with less than 50 people in the space of 3 years? They will laugh at you. They will literally laugh at you. And I knew that. And so for me, it was a matter of, it's not even like, can we do this? We had to do it. We had to grow the team. We had to have 15 concept artists. We had to have 20 different modelers. We've got 10 people in the back end. We've got 12 people across marketing and communications now. Like we are a fully fledged studio, and you know, for me, that's been the difference. We have experts that have done this before. They've been working in AAA studios for the last 15, 20 years, and they simply have had enough of that old model where the centralized entity owns everything. And that's how it's done.
I was going to ask you just that, which is every time I talk to you, and this was, you know, it would have been the team kind of doubled. There was a time where like the team just kept doubling. Now, you know, how many people are full time?
We're at 225 now.
That's crazy. I think that as I look to invest in people, I think the role of a founder should be, can you hire smarter people? Can you hire talent? It's kind of hard to find really good talent in Web3 for a number of reasons. I think the really talented people want to build their own, and or trying to find really good talent, in this case, game developers, is pretty hard too. But somehow you managed to do that. I think your brother, one of your brothers, had a lot of experience in this world. But how have you managed to attract like top talent in Web2 land to come and join Illuvium?
Firstly, you have to have a good product. You know, I really think that you're going to struggle to hire any AAA engineer or artist or whatever with what we were showing, you know, back 2 years ago. There needed to be a step up to say, okay, you're actually going to have fun building this thing, you know, because at the end of the day, making money is great, but, you know, that doesn't motivate everyone. The biggest thing for the hiring was showing people that A, we had a good product, but then B, using that to cascade it and saying, okay, well, you just came over from a AAA studio. Go and tell your friends about how amazing it is to work at Illuvium. You're getting really good pay. You've got tokens to come on board, which have now appreciated in value massively. And it's super chilled. It's remote, you know, and we really feel like we're owners of this thing. That concept with a good product is how you convince someone to come across.
Yeah. I want to get your perspective on play to earn, NFTs. But before we get there, say that you launched now. Can you support millions of users? Like, how do you think about scalability? Continues to be an issue in crypto. A lot of these underlying infrastructures, it's unclear if they can actually support like mainstream users. How do you think about that in the context of you're trying to build a really immersive game? Is the tech going to be there to support all the interest that you might get?
So if we ran the game, we were initially looking at building the game on top of Ethereum. Like that's how early we were thinking about this. Now, like people nowadays will be like, are you on crack? Like, what are you talking about? You can't do that. And so we quickly figured out that, you know, someone traveling and it costing them $100 in gas is going to work. So we decided to look into different layer 2 solutions, which essentially as you know, rolls up a whole bunch of transactions over in this other protocol, verifies them, and then essentially pastes them back onto the Ethereum blockchain. And because they're doing that in a bulk manner, it's way, way cheaper. We're then able to pass those savings on to the user. And so what it means is there'll be zero minting fees, no gas fees or anything like that for the in-game experience. And what we're trying to get to is literally a place where you don't even know that you're playing a Web3 game and that there's NFTs and blockchain underlying it. Mm-hmm. It's literally just, hey, I'm playing this new game.
Transitioning a little bit into kind of the current state of Web3 gaming, there's this kind of big movement called Play to Earn, which is a lot of the interest in Axie has been these guilds, is basically the same way that Uber kind of like created all these employment opportunities for people that had a car. Now anyone that has a PC can go and play Axie, join a guild, and earn decent income back in the depends on the price of SLP, the mm-hmm. in-game kind of reward token. It's felt like most of the activity in Axie is just these people that want to earn. How do you see this economy shaping up, like from a user perspective? People can play this battler. If you as you win these battles, you earn more points, and then you can use that and cash out and all this stuff. Is that the genesis of it? There are criticisms on this model, which is if people are only doing that, then at some point the music stops because you need to have kind of someone on the back end on the other side to kind of support this. So how do you, as you were thinking about designing this economy, like what were some of the things that you are integrating into Illuvium to kind of mitigate these pressures?
Yeah, so the first thing is that you have to be able to accept that you're not necessarily going to profit off playing our game. You might likely profit off it, but there's a chance that you won't. And that's how we keep the economy sustainable. If everyone is pulling money out over and over and over and over again, it's very quickly going to go down to zero. To sustain that, you need to have a fun factor where people are playing your game. The value that they're getting out of it is the entertainment, and they're willing to pay for that. So if someone, and I might enter the game, right? And I'm a pretty decent player. I collect a whole bunch of alluvials, blah, 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 but I sink, let's call it 5K into the game. I play it for, like I normally do, most games. I play for 2-3 years. I get over it. I move on to something else. If at that point I've had the same experience as I usually do when I played Web 2 games, and I might have spent $1,000 on skins or whatever it is like that. But if I can leave that game, if I can leave Illuvium and not leave my $5,000 of sunk cost in there, and I can go and sell a few characters, or maybe I can't sell all of them, and I'm holding like 2 or 3. But if I can leave the ecosystem and recuperate half or 20% or 10%, that is a much, much better situation than leaving World of Warcraft after you get over that, because everything is left behind and that's it. Now, the goal here is to make it as immersive and entertaining as your League of Legends and World of Warcraft. So then the advantage is, hey, that whatever you put in, you might not get it all back, but you're going to get something back if people are looking for those assets. Now, on the other side of it, you're going to have people who are literally only looking to earn, and our game allows that. You can literally start earning in our game without putting in a single dollar. By using the free-to-play version, you can go in, you can battle, upgrade your alluvials, increase their levels. Someone's going to be looking on the marketplace and go, you know what, it's a tier 0, but it's a tier 0 that's level 10 instead of level 1. Mm-hmm. So I'm willing to pay a little bit more for that. And straight away, someone has created value out of nothing. But that is not sustainable. You need to have the guys on the other side that are happy to play for the entertainment value.
That's such an important point, because it feels like, you know, the games that you and I grew up playing, like, even if I had all the money in the world, which I didn't, I would still play it because it's kind of fun. It transports us to, you know, the real world sometimes can be a difficult place. And you're just like, yeah, I want to play Zelda or World of Warcraft or Call of Duty and connect with my friends. It's a very social sport, and Illuvium is too. Like, you're playing against other people. And so I always like to remind myself the point that you made is so important, which is even if you had all the money in the world and you weren't earning anything, would you still come and show up and play this game because it's so damn cool? And I think that's a standard that I think what I always like think of what you're building. Like, I see this demo gameplay, I'm like, I want to play this game, and don't bother me for, like, you know, months. So I think that's a nice piece of it. How do you think about competition here? How do you think about attracting players? There are other games that are going to launch in Web3. Do you worry about that? Do you just say, or do you not care about it at all? Do you see maybe integrating with these games? Like, we talk about composability, interoperability in these worlds. Like, do you think like Illuvium can integrate with Axie or Ember Sword or some of these other games?
I need competition. I absolutely need competition. And I think it's the thing that pushes crypto forward at such a fast rate is the fact that, without realizing it, having everything open source creates inadvertent competition between people. Because even the people that don't even think about it, when you can literally see other people's products being built in front of you, internally you look at that and it creates this urgency of, okay, my competitors have just done this, I need to do this. And that's why you see V1, V2, V3, all the AMMs are going nuts on trying to build the next feature set. And so even if people don't realize it, I think it's happening just organically in this space, purely due to the open source nature. In terms of how we look at it in Illuvium, same thing. Like, this is a huge world. Firstly, it's 300, 400 million market right now, which is plenty big enough for 10 AAA games to be in this space. But we're still early in that. Like, wait until we get 5 billion people in the crypto space. Then at that point, we're going to be saying, I'll be lobbying for other Web 2 companies to come in and be like, please build something, because our RTS guys have now left to go play a first-person shooter, but they're now back in Web 2 world because it doesn't exist. So yeah, I love competition.
That's a good point. Do you think Web 2 studios like Fortnite will ever come into Web 3, and how would they interact with a game like Illuvium?
Yes, I do. And not because they want to do it. It won't, that's not going to be the catalyst. The customer always has the power, right? It or should always have the power. In the case of gaming, they don't have a choice. There hasn't been this second option of a different style of games that offer you a whole different, gamut of benefits. Now, the reason it hasn't happened at this point is people are going and playing these games and then they're not having fun, and they're coming back to Fortnite and they're like, well, I mean, I guess the only fun games are the ones where you can't actually own the assets. Now, enter Illuvium. They play that and they're like, hang on a second, these graphics are just as good, if not better than Fortnite. This is just as immersive. I've got competition. It's PvP. There's millions of players here. I'll go back to Fortnite, but the only thing I'm going back to them to do is to say, I'm not playing your game until you allow me to sell your assets. And that's it. And so I think, 10 years from now, they're not going to have a choice. And that's why I genuinely think we're not going to be calling it GameFi or anything. It will literally dissolve back into, I'm playing a game today. That's it.
Absolutely. That's such a good point. In terms of creating ecosystems for other developers to create expansion packs around Illuvium, is that something? Is that a priority now? Do you envision many people come in and say, "Hey, I want to," other perhaps external studios saying, "Hey, we want to take this world and build an extension." Are you seeing that today? Do you see that being a big part of how this kind of virtual world evolves?
I to be honest, I used to, I used to push that narrative and say, hey, this is an awesome thing, and we're all going to live in this wonderful world together, and you bring your crypto punk in, and you can start battling it, and it's like when you stop and think about what that actually means, it sounds stupid, right? It sounds a little bit dumb. Now, does that mean we can give people the ability to build in our world? We give them an SDK and away they go. And can it be possible? Yes. Decentraland, it exists. Is the experience that Ready Player One, what people really, really think? No. And the reason is because if someone wanted to build a new alluvial, let's say, you'd need like 35 different people touch a single alluvial asset, like 35.
The alluvial for everyone out there is, when you go back to the demo, the alluvial is the particular character, if you will.
Correct. Yeah. Essentially the Pokemon of our world.
The Pokemon, yeah, the Charmander, the Pikachu or whatever of yeah. Well, it's good to see that. Like, I think it sounds like you're super laser focused on the North Star really is just the cohesiveness and the experience that it needs to have the highest level of standard. As you say, people that come to play Illuvium hopefully don't think of this as like, I'm making a trade-off on compromising on game experience and fun ability, if you will, because I'm earning all this stuff. No, it's like, no. It's exactly the same. Oh, and all of a sudden there's all these benefits. Oh, cool. I'm going to actually stay here. And you solve a lot of the retention issues that games have. Like that's kind of the standard that you're holding. And you kind of need to own that. You can't outsource that, really. Yeah,
100%. And the best way that I can describe it to people who have never heard of NFTs or anything like that, like the thing that resonates most when I speak to people is when Pokemon Go came out and everyone started playing it, and grown-ups were playing it because of the nostalgia and whatever, and that's why I think it resonates with people. Imagine if those Pokemon that you're going and capturing, you could go and sell. So you're on your lunch break and you're like, holy shit, there's a Pikachu or whatever. You capture it and then you go, let's just check on the marketplace. Actually, I caught a holographic Pikachu, which is even more rare. And I look up and I'm like, wow, I can sell that for $500. You're literally sitting there on your lunch break going, I'm playing a game for the next 30 minutes and you just made $500. Like,
Why even bother going back to work?
Why go back to work? That's one conversation. But why go back to the real Pokemon where you just think about how stupid it's gonna look, right? If a game like Pokemon comes out after and says, no, you can't own your assets, and there's 10 games where you can own your assets, people are going to be like, what? You can't. Great. You can own all the assets you want, Niantic. All of them are yours, but guess how many customers you have? 0.
Yeah. It's almost like an airline not having like reward points. You're like, wait a minute, why would I fly with this airline? Like, no fucking way.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, I totally. It's almost like, these things become super obvious once they launch. When I first heard your pitch in November, and it was like COVID, like it was dark time, most people were inside. You're like, okay, well, I need a game now. I thought of Pokemon and Zelda. Pokemon, I think, is an interesting example because I want to get your take on NFTs. There is a lot of NFTs components in Illuvium. So why don't we start there? Like, tell us a little bit about how do you integrate NFTs into the game? Why are they so important? And I think you're relating it to Pokemon and the collectability of these characters. So love to hear your take on that.
So that is your token of ownership that can never be taken away from you. And the reason that an NFT is so powerful is because of the platforms that accept NFTs. So NFTs are interoperable with any protocol that accepts them, right? Or the standard of NFT, as long as they accept that standard of NFT. But where it gets advantageous over your standard game is you can take that NFT and inject it into the next game. Like imagine if you're playing Call of Duty 1, right? And you're sitting there and you've got all these weapons that you've bought and skins and stuff like that. And then Call of Duty 2 comes out. What do? You got to go and either buy all the skins again or collect them again. Imagine if you could take those weapons and NFTs that you got 5 years ago and bring them into Call of Duty 2. Now, that is definitely possible, and right now that would be possible, and that's exactly what I'm talking about. If you capture an alluvial in, which is our characters in Illuvium, the main game, that might still have value and replayability in a totally different game 10 years on from now, and no one can ever take that ownership away. You're not sitting there going, "Ooh, what if?" They turn the servers off in World of Warcraft. Do I lose my level 50? No, so that's what NFTs do for me.
So say in 2-3 years time, Illuvium becomes the most popular, widely kind of played Web3 game. There's all these NFTs that people have. There's going to be other games in the market. Do you see a world where I can take my Illuvial and go and play a totally different game outside of your ecosystem, your virtual world, where another game might say, well, this is pretty interesting. Illuvium has like millions of players. I'm just going to allow these NFTs to be injected into my game as a strategy to pull in players from this world into mine. Do you see that? And if so, does that concern you?
Right now, you'd have to be in collaboration. Like there's no SDK that we've exposed to people where people can start creating Illuvium. Like you don't know the standard, you don't know the stats that we have on different characters, with the abilities for them, the animations might not even, like you might bring a character in that isn't animated, or only has a few basic animations, and it's like, hey, well, we fly in our game, so can you allow that? And that's what I mean about the collaboration. It is possible, but effectively they're building your assets, right? And so we actually already have done this with another game where they asked us. They said, hey, Arlen is really, really popular. Can we allow people to take Arlen from our game and bring them into this game? It's called Galaxy Fight Club, which is all about, I think you might actually be in this one, or maybe not, but it's all about taking interoperable assets into this arena and you go and battle it out. I was like, oh, okay, so let's say we give you the asset. There's not even a starting point of where I can sit there and go, unless they would have to literally recreate the asset. Now, the problem with recreating the asset is it's not that unique NFT anymore. It's a different one. And that's what we did in the case of GFC, where we gave them Arlen, but it had to be built with the attributes for GFC, that game, so it could actually be played in that game. So, do I see it happening in the future? And will there be some crazy standard that is created that allows assets to be ported in and out of games? To be honest, yes, I do believe it, but we're very, very far away, in my opinion.
I want to touch on something that is very topical, but also tends to be just a broader discussion on the metaverse, which is land. land is an important piece of Illuvium. People can acquire parcels of land, and there's an upcoming kind of land sale for people to have further ownership in this game. Tell us a little bit about the intuition behind this strategy. What does it mean to actually own land in Illuvium? And how do you see that being a core piece of the experience?
Originally, we saw a bunch of protocols selling land, and I thought, I want to do that too. Let's definitely sell some land. Now, the problem with all of these sales was there was no utility on the land. Like, you couldn't do anything. It was just this plot is rare and that is it, right? Like, scarcity is great, and I think it works in the case of crypto punks and whatever. As DeFi grows to 1 billion users, there's only 10,000. They're gonna continue to be rare, but it doesn't last that long, right? Especially not when there's 100 different projects that are all building land. You've got to have utility. And so that's where Illuvium 0 came in, and Aaron and Johnny both designed that game. It's interconnected with Illuvium financially, basically. So how that works is, if you're a landowner, you are essentially mining the resources that are required in the main game. So it's the fuel that you use across things like traveling, curing shards, which are used to capture the alluvials. If you want to craft weapons, all of it requires this fuel. Now, the fuel comes from the main game. So if you go out and buy yourself a piece of land, you can start generating this fuel, and when the game is live, you'll literally be able to sell that to people who are playing the main game. And so what it basically boils down to is about 5% of all of the in-game transactions will be distributed to landholders.
That makes a lot of sense. Can someone just have a financial advantage where you come in, you have all the money in the world, you're a whale, and you just say, hey, listen, I'm just going to buy all these resources and level up faster than most people? Is that possible? If so, does that kind of demoralize? Is that like demoralizing for users that might not have as much resources from the get-go, or just generally?
So where it counts in like PvP ranked battles, no, we take all of that out. So we completely balance the game. So you can spend as much as you want, but if someone is more skilled than you, they're going to beat you, right? Now, it's crypto, so we had to add in a mode where you could just be a whale. We call them leviathans, and there's no normalization of stats. You can literally go and purchase a whole bunch of tier 5s, go in and start wrecking people and betting ETH and all that kind of stuff. But again, the reason why it works and we're not worried about that is someone went out and spent their valuable time trying to capture those tier 5 alluvials that person is then buying. So that's the scenario of your person in the Philippines who's looking, out there trying to make a living out of this game.
Right. I think one of the things that most people kind of get wrong in crypto generally is you come from a mentality that scarcity, you hear scarcity, 21 million Bitcoin, and people think about like in scarcity driving value. But gaming is so different, I think. And I think everything that we touch in this podcast is usability and making that experience seamless, beautiful, engaging. And I think that's was kind of the reason why you were my first game in crypto. I came from just purely just being a DeFi degen at Parify. And even I knew your brother. I mean, I was early investor as well in Haven, then turned Synthetics and was thinking about redesigning, kind of reinventing in many ways. I think Synthetics created yield farming and staking, and Kane's ambitions like yours were not short by any stretch of the imagination, being a generalized derivatives platform. So when I first met you, I thought, okay, this is the vision is there. And it's always very refreshing to meet someone that says, we're not going to make a compromise. If crypto is really going to truly succeed, is because it's 10x better, not on one parameter, but on all of them. Like, you know what I mean? People don't want to, in mainstream, people want to use stuff because it's just great and it's familiar as well. And I think when you look at the demo and the gameplay, it is like a Web2 game, right? So I think that's what's most exciting about I think what you're building. But yeah, I think the discussion around scarcity is important because I think it's not about scarcity. It's about creating just a beautiful experience that drives utility, that allows millions and millions of people to come in and play, and it's accessible. And that ultimately drives the most amount of value, not like a randomly generated 10,000, JPEGs.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I totally agree with you. And the best example I can give you of like my own experience of that was when I decided to join the ETH Lizard guys. They had a cool idea, I love the art of the lizards. They're funny and whatever. But I got in there and it came out of the Illuvium Discord. That's why I was kind of drawn to these guys. And I ended up getting in touch with the founding team, and I said, I'm on board. And they said, can we make a lizard of you? And I said, yep, let's do a few founders lizards and whatever. And you've got one of those and a bunch of other big DeFi people. But then it just stopped. And I kind of I saw Azuki start pumping, and I said to the guys, I was like, what do we do? Like, we need to do something. Like, this thing needs to do something. And they were like, yeah, but we're going to fund tournaments, whatever. And I'm like, I call them vanity NFT metrics, right? Like, we're going to have a club, we're going to give you access, we're going to do that. Like, where's my utility? And obviously some clubs and stuff can work if they're done well, but where is the utility? And I don't know, we came up with the one version of that, which is literally a GameFi DAO where you hold this lizard and you earn profit from GameFi investments that the DAO makes. That's a very simple, easy to explain use case. And I think you're 100% right. That's what's missing in a lot of NFT collections, a lot of games. Like, what am I actually going to get out of it? If there's no entertainment utility, then it's probably not going to last.
Yeah, definitely. What is this ETH Lizard? So like, is that going to be a part of Illuvium? So you see that more like as a guild, or yeah, because I've seen them all over now. I mean, of course I have one, which is amazing, and I like them aesthetically, but curious.
So they're a group of people that very smartly took our DGen channel, which is a channel inside our Discord, which is where it's no holds bar. It's essentially say whatever you want, shill whatever you want. There's not going to be, like, moderators wouldn't even dare go in there, even though there are a few now. And they basically, I got too busy, and I used to love going to this DGen place, and I got too busy and I hadn't gone there in a long time. And when I did, pretty much everyone was gone. And what these guys had done is they'd taken the DGen channel and said, we want to represent the DGen channel with these lizards, and that's going to be our collection. And I thought that was brilliant. I love that. Like, even though you're essentially siphoning away my community members or whatever, it's brilliant. It's an awesome growth hack for them to go, you know what, we've already got this community, let's just pull it out and then attach NFTs to it. And all of a sudden, we have this place where people can live, and on top of just being a DGen member, I now have a symbol to say that I'm a part of it. But again, that's great. And that lasted like 6 weeks. And I was kind of like, cool, I've got my lizard. I posted on Twitter a couple of times and it didn't really. And then it wasn't until I started thinking, there is a like I started watching the type of person that was joining these communities. And I was like, this is a different customer to Illuvium. Like, similar, but definitely different. And I thought to myself, what what if I could tap into that? What if like I'm watching these Azuki, I'm watching Moonbirds, I'm watching all of these crazy collections have like millions of eyeballs on them, and I thought, what if they've already siphoned it off? It's over there. But what if we could build this thing up, give it some utility? I always get people pitching me all the time about pre-seed and seed investments. Half the time I don't even have time to look at it. What if we could build this DAO that had elected officials that would essentially vote on whether to invest in it? It's going to build up, and with that utility and also the cool aesthetic, it's going to be a big project. Then if I can show this big project, if I can be that advisor that really help to build it up and build the framework and whatever, hopefully I can say to those people, hey, by the way, I've also got this AAA game over here. Chances are they're going to be pretty into gaming. And so the idea is that eventually we're starting to tap into these NFT collection type customers and influencers and getting them to start playing Illuvium as well. That's the end goal.
Yeah. No, it's super exciting to have seen it.
The question that I have for you actually is like, what did you originally think when Kane approached you and said, hey, my brother has started a project. Do you want to have a look at it? Like, and you can be completely honest, like, because I have my own opinions of what I would think, like what's the chances of it happening, but what do you think? What was your opinion?
So I vividly remember this. It was like November and Kane just pinged me randomly and I said, hey, I have I have a brother that wants to finally build something. I'm like, wait a minute, you have a brother? I'm like, well, you could like take my money. And then I said, well, it's not in DeFi, it's in gaming. But you could see I said, okay, if you can build a really immersive game, which I related to. When I read the white paper, when I heard your pitch in the first 5 minutes, it said, and I asked you, I think is this kind of like World of Warcraft, more like Zelda? And you're like, yeah. I'm like, and I was seeing what Axie was doing. And I said, wait a minute, if a game like that can get this traction, then I can't imagine what a super immersive game, does for the space. And more importantly, which touches on a lot of things that you've said, which is I can see myself playing this game. I didn't see myself playing Axie. Like I was playing Axie. I'm like, well, like, no, like, I mean, these Axies are cute, but like, I wanted to play it. And I downloaded the Sky Mavis client. I did all the hoops. And this was like in the midst of yield farming craziness. But then I lost interest. Yeah. And so for me, that was what really connected it. I mean, I always tell people, like, for me, it's always a team bet. Like, you guys have evolved so much. And was it obvious back then? Absolutely not. Did I think you were going to get to 200 plus full-time employees and release the demo you just did? And in a year and a half times from now, like be where we are today? No. But my role is not to kind of predict that. It's so hard to predict that. I think I'm always constantly surprised by really good founders that I invest in because they just do that. They are somehow managed to hire the best people and surpass the initial expectations. Like it is crazy to think that like you're going to get it right from the very beginning. And the white paper, what it was back then and where you are today is totally different. But you just, I think from my vantage point, I just sort of had an intuition that you were going to be someone like Kane that was not going to give up, build through a bear market if there is one, if there was going to be one, and just hire the best people because you grew up in a household that it was that, right? Your other brother, which I then learned had been part of like Lord of the Rings and I was like, okay, well.
Which you actually, it's funny. I remember telling you this because it was Von Neumann back then and that eventually turned into Grant. But I remember I told you in that initial pitch and I was like, by the way, we're not telling anyone, but that just shows your character as well. Like I knew after speaking to you for like 30 minutes, I was like, this guy isn't going to tell anyone anything. Like he's locked that down. So
and my tongue
crazy
around that. But no, it's been pretty immersive. Like people ask me like, how do you spend your time? And I think for me, it's just I like to be a part of. I became very very interested in gaming to some extent NFTs, but particularly gaming because I think for the first time, like you're able to send someone and say go and try it Illuvium. And to me, it for the last 10 years, I've kind of struggled to explain to people why you'd want to have Bitcoin, why you'd want to hold something like Ethereum. Like it's very hard for normal people to see that, but it's not hard to see and get people excited about playing Illuvium. Whether you like gaming or not, totally different like conversation, but it makes crypto relatable. And I almost think that this is what takes us mainstream. Credibly, assuming that you can figure out the scalability things like Immutable X or whatever. But putting that aside, which it will get figured out, you know, I think humans have a way to like in the last minute figure shit out, like just somehow we'll have a breakthrough, and support millions and millions of users. But you see that for the first time, you actually credibly see that, and you say people are going to want to play this game, and it's going to be explosive. Because then once they're there, they start learning about all the components of DeFi. Maybe they don't consciously think about it, but that's a hook. Then there's like, oh, let's integrate. There's all this DeFi in the back end. Once you start making and earning money, whether you like it or not, it's just going to be a part of something you're going to have to learn. And what's cool about it is you can earn income. And it's more about that I think is super interesting. It's not that DeFi is dead. In fact, DeFi really comes to life with a game like Illuvium. And so, yeah, I think you're just touching on, for me,
exactly.
That's what I see, because most people don't like to think about money. Very few people constantly sit all day and be like, where can I optimize my yield farms? Like, what? Like, what are you talking about? Go out and like run or something. But games are pretty powerful. So it's been amazing. I mean, I tell people this is Illuvium. Hopefully this is a objective conversation. I want to get people to an understanding of how quickly you guys have built what you built. I think seeing it, very few projects in crypto you can actually see and feel what they're building. It's all kind of like words, as you say, but not here. And I think hopefully people have gotten an appreciation for what you guys are building. It's close. I think, you know, we're going to be playing this soon, and it's in the next 24 hours. So good luck trying to get a hold of me ever. So, but yeah, no, this has been great, man. I mean, I think maybe as a last kind of question to you, like where can people get involved? Are there opportunities to come work, develop, obviously play the game, but more so from where can people learn more about what's happening under the hood? And
yeah, I mean, yeah, if you're watching this and you work at a AAA studio and you've been thinking about coming across, we would love to have you. Absolutely. There's, you know, positions across the board. We're trying to get eventually up to a studio of 1,000 core contributors. So yeah, there's definitely room, but yeah, join the Discord. As you said, the community is always bustling. It's a really fun place to hang out, and you can learn everything you need to about Illuvium.
Awesome, Kieran. We'll have to do this again soon. I know we're going to see each other permissionless. Maybe we'll have to record something there. But anyway, super exciting. Thanks for coming on the pod. I know we're super busy, and we'll have you on soon.
Thanks, man.
Thanks, man.